Hi everybody, this is David, and the very first RPG that I ever played was Dragon Warrior 1 back on the NES. I was like 7 or so years old, and it really did start my love affair with RPGs. Something about just being able to slow down, relax, and immerse yourself into a game just really spoke to me. I could not get enough of it. The game itself taught me how to read and single-handedly made me fall in love with video games, and through this channel, it has now changed my entire life. And I do think that that's something that's worth subscribing for, as I'm really trying my hardest to hit my goal of 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and I do hope that you can help me out with that by subscribing and also smashing that like button. So now, I want to share my love of Dragon Quest with all of y'all and really tell you what this series is all about so that you can make an informed decision about which entries are right for you and also get you started for the upcoming Dragon Quest III HD 2D release. There are 11 mainline games so far, with a 12th game in development, as well as many different spin-off series. I mean, the franchise has been around since 1986 after all, but I do want to go ahead and start at the beginning. All of the Dragon Quest games do share many commonalities, from a bright, upbeat, fun, relatively open world to explore, to challenging turn-based strategic combat against monsters that don't really change all that much throughout the series. I mean, one of the most iconic images of the entire series is the lowly blue slime, which has been here since the very first game. I think that the continuity here is really just what makes it so special for me. I can turn on a brand new Dragon Quest and just kind of get transported on back to 1999 when I was a little kid playing in the living room over in Bowling Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. The first 4 games were released on the NES, though at the time, because of a copyright issue, they were known as Dragon Warrior here in the West. So while now they are called Dragon Quest, you might sometimes hear them be referred to as Dragon Warrior, since it really wasn't until Dragon Quest VIII that the name change finally officially took effect. The first 3 Dragon Quest games are unique insofar as they are each connected to one another, and they form a trilogy together known as the Erdrick Trilogy. Dragon Quest I is most simplistic of the bunch. Taking place in Alefgard, you're a descendant of the great hero Erdrick, and you're tasked with defeating the Dragon Lord over in Charlock Castle. What's really different about it though is that the whole game is open world. The only thing that's stopping you from getting to the next location are your levels and more powerful monsters. So don't let anybody tell you that JRPGs are super linear or that Western RPGs created the open world concept, because all of the Dragon Quest games on the NES are pretty much open world just like this. You set off going from town to town, fighting monsters, upgrading your equipment, and revealing clues in order to get the Staff of Rain, the Stones of Sunlight, and the Rainbow Drop in order to make your way to Charlock Castle and defeat the Dragon Lord. Dragon Quest II takes place 100 years after the first game, and it's the last game in the trilogy chronologically. Here you play as the descendant of the hero from the first game, who sets off to gather up his cousins, who are also descended from the hero, and together, the 3 of you set off to face the evil wizard Hargon. This could very well be the first RPG that features multiple party members. Your hero, the Prince of Midenhall, is a brute force attacker, the Prince of Cannock is well-rounded, and the Princess of Moonbrook is a formidable mage. The map is about 4 times the size of the first game, and once you get a ship, the world is your oyster. You can go anywhere that your little heart desires in order to find the 5 crests and tackle Hargon. Unfortunately though, this game is known as the black sheep of the series, mostly because of how unbalanced it gets towards the end of the game. The bugs with the princess's leveling, and just how brutal some of these endgame dungeons can be. However, all of those issues have been fixed in all the subsequent remakes. Those issues still only remain in the NES version of the game. The third game is the conclusion of the Erdrick Trilogy, and it takes place first chronologically, because here you actually play as Erdrick. But here, they also introduced a long-running theme in the series, job classes, as well as the ability to class change. You're now able to make up a party of 4 different characters over at Louisa's Tavern, and you can choose who to come along with you, from fighters and soldiers to merchants to jesters to pilgrims and wizards. And then even in the remake, you can bring along a thief. And in the new remake, you're going to be able to have a Beastmaster too. And then later on, whenever you reach the Shrine of Dharma, and your original characters are at level 20, they can change classes to whatever class that you want to, and they'll keep all the spells that they learned, though their stats will be halved, and they'll also get reset to level 1, but they'll gain up back soon enough. So you can start off as a pilgrim, learn some healing spells, then switch on over to a fighter, so you have a super fast, critical hitting warrior who can back up heal. I love the job system here, and it really does make for a ton of replayability. Similar to the second game, it begins somewhat linear, but it quickly opens up, especially once you get your ship. And whereas in the second game you were hunting for crests, Now you're hunting for orbs to awaken the great bird Ramia and take down the demon Lord Baramos. I always thought that it was interesting that the world map here is actually based upon Earth. And then, much later on, you're even able to dive into the Dark World, which is Alefgard from the first game, and here it really does come full circle. The fourth game on the NES was a definite departure from the first three, not only because it left the Erdrick trilogy behind and started its own new trilogy, the Zenithal trilogy, but also because of its story structure. No other Dragon Quest game is structured like this. Instead of just beginning as the hero, each of the hero's companions has their own chapter, and you need to play through those first. You'll begin as Ragnar, rescuing the children of Ismet. Then you'll segue over to the rebellious Princess Alina and her two companions, only to then play as Talon, an arms merchant who wants to make it big in the city of Endor, before then playing the story of twin sisters who are bent on revenge, and then, only after playing through their stories about 10 to 15 hours worth, then you will hit Chapter 5, where all of the characters join up and you get to play as the hero, as you scour the world map, collecting all the other characters from the previous 4 chapters. And since there are 8 characters, a wagon system was introduced here. All 8 characters will travel with you and fight along your side, and you can switch them out at will during combat. It is a super advanced system for the tiny little NES. Also, mini medals were first introduced here, which are just little tiny medals hidden around the world that you have to collect, and you can turn them in for unique prizes. The namesake of the trilogy is found here in the Zenithal Tower and Castle, which is a tower that reaches up into the sky and a castle that floats on a cloud. Whereas the first 3 games were connected in their story, the next 3 games are really only loosely connected with a couple of dungeons and themes such as those towers and castles. With the move on over to the SNES, the series made some drastic changes. Well, at least drastic in a Dragon Quest sense, as now the story takes even more of a front seat. The 5th game in the series is known as Yuji Horii, the series creator's favorite game, and it's honestly my favorite too. It tells the story of a young boy as he travels the world searching for his lost mother, and then he'll grow up into a teenager as he watches the world change all around him, and then eventually get married, become an adult, and have children of his own. The entire story is very heartwarming as well as heartbreaking at times, but it's so well done. Also introduced here is the monster capturing system, and while you can do that to a limited extent in the next game too, it's really the main gameplay component here, as not a whole lot of human characters will join up with you until much later in the game, so you do really have to rely on your monster companions to help you along. The 6th entry and the final game of the Zenithal trilogy reintroduces the job class system first introduced in the 3rd game, but here it is so much more advanced. Not only do you have your basic jobs such as the fighter, thief, cleric, and wizard, but as you master those basic jobs, you'll be able to combine them into more powerful jobs, such as the superstar, sage, paladin, and armamentalist. However, it does take quite a bit of time to get to the stage where you can master your jobs, but unlike in a game like, say, Final Fantasy V, you do get to keep every single skill that you learn, whether you master that job or not, and no matter what job you are. The story's super cool too. The world's been split up into 2. There's the real world, and then the dream world. And you spend the first third of the game kind of figuring out who you are and what world you belong to. And then the next parts of the game traversing each world, solving their problems, and trying to bring the worlds back together into one. Dragon Quest VII is kind of like the 6th game, but on steroids. The job and upgrade system is extremely similar, but just a lot more involved, and the world is kind of split as well. You begin on a remote island, really the only island on the face of the planet, as each other island and continent has been banished from the world. So you and your friends travel to the past and resurrect the lost lands and restore them back to the present. It seems kind of mundane, but let me tell you, this is easily the longest game in the entire series, and it will take you at least 150 hours to beat, if not 200, like it took me. This is definitely a game made for the die-hard fans of the series, and it's not the best entry point for new players. It is just fan only. However, Dragon Quest VIII, the first entry to carry that official Quest moniker instead of the Warrior moniker, as well as the first entry in 3D, is definitely a great starting point for new players. Not only has the job class system been dropped, but now your characters have much more personality, and it's a lot more akin to a Final Fantasy game in that regard. To add to the immersion, voice acting as well as symphonic music has been added to draw you in, and character skill trees are used instead of job classes for progression. Each character has 5 different skill trees that they can go down according to their weapon or personality, and each really allows you to customize the characters to your liking, so no 2 playthroughs will ever be the same. And I've gotta say, for both Dragon Quest VII and 8, if you want to play through them nowadays, I would highly recommend the 3DS versions, as it really streamlined the games and added in tons of quality of life features, such as on-screen encounters, and in the 8th game, more party members too. Now, Dragon Quest IX is the first entry to be stuck on a portable system, and not actually on any sort of home console, and it's a definite throwback too. The voice acting, as well as the party members with personalities that were here in the 8th game, are now gone, and it throws itself back to the gameplay of Dragon Quest III. You play as an angel, sent down to Earth to assist your town and gather benevolence, essentially the people's gratitude. That is, until the great Yggdrasil tree shatters, and you're sent down to Earth as a human to discover why evil is rising. And while you do begin alone, you'll quickly gather up 3 more silent party members of whom you can choose their job classes, and assign their weapon skill trees based upon the said jobs. The world, though, is still in 3D, and for the first time in the series, monster encounters occur on screen. All told, it is a good game, and it's a really interesting offshoot from the series that many people kind of feels like lost in the shuffle, and definitely needs a modern port or remake. Dragon Quest X has unfortunately never been released in America. It's a Japan-only MMO, and quite honestly, it looks pretty amazing. But unfortunately, it's never been officially released here in the West, though it does have a pretty nice unofficial translation if you wanted to play it over on the PC. So that leads us to the last mainline entry of the series, Dragon Quest XI. This game takes a ton of inspiration from Dragon Quest VIII, only everything has been upgraded and much more fleshed out. Instead of 4 different party members, you now have 8, and the world is massive, ripe for exploration. Encounters are still on screen and the story is well told. However, at the very end, it does harken all the way back to Dragon Quest III. That being said though, I would add this again to the list of must-play Dragon Quest games. And since it was released the most recently on the latest consoles, it's also the easiest to access too. You can't go wrong playing this game and seeing what the series is all about. Keep in mind though, there is an S version of the game with added content and a spiffy 2D mode, so if you're going to get into this series, you might as well get the definitive version. I do hope that this video has helped you get an understanding and feel for this long-running series, and really like the great granddaddy of all JRPGs that we do play today. And I want to know, what are your favorite Dragon Quests, and what do you like so much about the series? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, here's another one that I really think that you're going to enjoy. So please be sure to check it out, and as always, have a good day.